Thank you for listening to the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network, which now includes No Sonietes, Lobbing Scorchers, and the Cooler Guild. We've been independent since August of 2023, but need your support to make sure it continues. Although this podcast is free, it's only made possible by your continued support. Memberships start as low as $25 a year, which not only helps make podcasts like this one happen, but also gets you access to everything we produce. If you're able to support us at higher levels, starting at $75 a year, you gain access to a host of other perks, most notably entry into our members-only Discord, where the smartest, funniest, and most engaged commenters share their thoughts and ideas. To find out more, just visit sounderatheart.com and click the subscribe button in the top right corner. Thanks for listening.
This episode of Lobbing Scorchers is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based seller. Not only are they a local company, but they've been supporting independent Seattle soccer media since 2011 and are run by Sounders fans. They offer the best boutique wines in the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest. Their model is simple. 1, they email compelling offers. 2, you request bottles that sound appealing. 3, your wine arrives at their Soto warehouse and is ready for pickup or shipping. Their Soto tasting room is also open to the public. If you're interested in joining their mailing list or learning more about them, visit fullpullwines.com. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 80 of Lobbing Scorchers. This is Ari Liljenwall. I got producer Noah here with me. Noah, we're back with another offseason episode. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling like we've got more rumors, more transfers, but somehow I still feel like we're in the same holding pattern. I'm itching for some games, Ari. I'm itching for some preseason.
We're still a few weeks away from preseason, a few weeks away from the game starting, but the offseason churns onward, and we are back with another banger episode with a lot to cover. Jesus Ferreira is pretty much confirmed to be a Sounder, not officially confirmed, but pretty much confirmed. Jordan Morris is probably a DP, not officially confirmed, but probably confirmed, and the people are still not happy about it. We're going to debate a couple of topics surrounding those two ongoing storylines. We're also going to talk a little bit about the future of Obed Vargas, where we think he might go, where we think he should go, and a silly season rumor linking the Seattle Sounders to a noted England international. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that, but there was actually, and there's a real report surrounding that. It was not just a fake aggregator account. So we are going to talk about that briefly. But first, I do have to let you all know that Lobbing Scorchers is a part of the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network. If you want to get the best independent Seattle soccer coverage, consider supporting us by going to sounderatheart.com/LS. That's sounderatheart.com/LS. Scroll down to subscribe and support to get 30 days completely free. Every sign up through our link helps support and grow this show. As always, we want to thank everyone who has already subscribed to the show. Noah, do we have any new subs this week?
We do have some new subs, Ari.
Some.
We do.
All right.
We do.
Rattle them off.
All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Number 1, Jacob Liljenwall.
Oh,
I don't know who that is.
Yeah,
I never heard of him before. Great last name, though. Alex, I'm gonna butcher this last name, Ari. It looks like mustache, but mustache.
Alex, thank you for the sub, and hit us up and tell us how to pronounce that, please.
It's a fire last name.
It's fire, but yeah, I'm not sure on that either.
And then Jeffrey Hurst. Thank you for becoming number 51, 52, 53.
53 subs. We love to see that. Thank you guys all so much. And also, this is a celebratory episode.
Yeah, it
Noah.
is.
Celebratory episode. I've been pushing the Lobbing Scorchers YouTube every single episode. We've started to upload regularly on there. We've started live streaming, and we finally did it. We hit 1,000 subs. That was the milestone we've been working for, just so everyone knows. The reason that is not a milestone for our own vanity and ego. That is part of it. But that actually is with the YouTube partner program. You need to have 1,000 subs to unlock monetization, ad revenue and stuff. And we did that. So you guys all helped us make a little bit of money. Not a lot, but a little bit. So we appreciate that. And also, it's just cool to be at quad digits.
Yeah.
I was getting tired of being in triple digits.
Yeah.
So
that
thank you all.
That K hits different.
It hits way different. The first time I saw it, I was like, ooh,
yep,
that is some endorphins.
Road to a milli.
Appreciate your guys' support on YouTube and getting us to that milestone. We're going to keep grinding on there. And The live shows we've been doing, though, have been going really well. It's a lot of fun to interact with our listeners in real time, and they're doing pretty decent view numbers. So we're most certainly going to keep doing those through the off season and then during the season as well. So thank you all for the support on those. And also follow us on Instagram and TikTok. If you haven't followed us on Instagram, please, right now, take out your phone, hit that little Instagram icon, type in Lobbing Scorchers, give us a follow. We got 1K subs on YouTube, but we're not doing as hot on IG, so we need some support on IG.
Ari's got a new project.
I got a new project. All right, let's get into this off-season episode, Noah. I was going to start with this question that we were talking about on our last stream, and you were kind of firing some takes on this. And the question is, have the Seattle Sounders painted themselves into a corner with their roster maneuvering? Noah, did you want to explain the sort of where people are coming from with this sentiment, and then we can debate the validity or lack thereof?
Yeah, I think that there's been a overarching theme or idea that people have thrown out season after season, especially since Garth left, that the Sounders continue to put themselves in a pickle and not necessarily know how to get out of it in terms of roster building, setting up incentives for players that hit and then puts them in a bind. So, like, why would you potentially put out something like that and not think a player is going to hit it? And then, just different things with re-signing players year after year, not buying out Raul, things like that, where you lock yourself into one scenario and provide zero flexibility. So that's kind of where I think a lot of people are coming from with the bind, but I'm not necessarily sure what you think about this.
Yeah, so first thing I'll say is I don't have an issue with incentives in a contract that can allow a player to earn more money or earn more status. Like, I don't really see why, like, am I supposed to be mad that a player earned their money? Like, and I think that's sort of with the Jordan debate specifically. Like, I'm just going to say it, Noah.
Say it.
Like, some people aren't going to like this. I'm going to say it. He produced like a DP last year. He did. The question is not whether he produced like a DP last year. That is not debatable looking at the stat sheet. The question is, do you think he's going to produce like that next year and the next couple years? I think that's where the hesitation should come from with that. Me personally, based on what I saw last year, I thought he looked really good physically. I thought he produced like a DP and he scored the biggest goal of the playoffs. So from that standpoint, I'm not as worried about it. I do understand why people... I get it. Like, I get why people feel like that's not like the flashiest or most exciting signing. But as far as those incentive goes, they basically said, if you produce like a DP, we're going to pay you like a DP. And then he did. So I have no issue from that necessarily. Forcing themselves to bring Rusnak back, again, like, he did produce like a DP last year. I don't think they painted themselves in a corner as far as that goes. What I think the issue is here is that they might have signed a DP that was a bust in De La Vega, okay? In a world where De La Vega had hit or at least been closer to what he was billed as, I think these things become non-issues. But the where they're kind of painted into a corner is that you have De La Vega signed and he came off a bust of a first year. And so that's part you can't add like high finance player high finance player that you might have otherwise been able to add with him on the books. So really, like, to me, what this is more about is the importance and the kind of pressure that's on De La Vega to come good next year. I think it's really a pretty clear-cut black and white situation where if that happens and you have him producing like he is getting paid and like you paid for him, then this roster is in like obviously a much better place. But if it's the same, if he has a repeat this year of what he did last year, then that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, the problem for me at least is that they put themselves in this hole, not this year, not last year, but previously, where they're not thinking 2-3 years ahead right now. Maybe they were with the De La Vega signing. I think that's fair. But They weren't, because they were putting all of their chips on an undeveloped player who they had no idea what he was going to do in Major League Soccer. And it's not fair to expect that a 23, 24-year-old is going to carry the load on your entire team when he was playing in Argentina. Like, no disrespect to the Argentinian league, but it's not like he was coming from Europe or something. Like, he was coming from a league that is very different from MLS and had injury problems before that, and they decided that is our big signing. And then they were like, you know what? Let's not buy out Raul. Let's let him sit here on the bench, not play, continue to pay him, and then potentially that choice elevated another player to a designated player spot. And what are you supposed to do with that? That, to me, that is poor planning and constantly backing yourself into a corner with no escape route. Just playing what is 1 inch in front of you instead of looking at what's a mile in front of you. It seems very stupid. And I'm not going to ever argue with the fact that Jordan Morris earned his spot or that Albert earned his spot, because both of them produced incredibly well, and we've been defensive of both of those players. It's not on the players. To me, it's on poor management, incredibly poor roster management, and like penny pinching for what? For what?
Yeah. Couple of things to unpack there. I think it's obvious in hindsight that they should have moved off Raul earlier, but we are saying that with the knowledge already of how last year went.
They could have bought him out in the summer.
They could have bought him out in the summer.
And we were both calling for that.
That is true. But frankly, I don't know how much that would have helped the situation.
They could have signed a 9. I mean that's what I think. Like, it's you put yourself in a position where you have less windows to make less decisions, and even if they didn't re-sign a 9, let's say they pick someone up on TAM and they had that open DP spot, that gives them the ultimate flexibility to tell Rusnak to go kick rocks, to go figure out whatever else, right? Like, yes, maybe you don't get this Jesus deal done because you have that open DP spot, but there's so many other things that you could have done in that meantime if you have that flexibility. It's less about the decisions that they made and more about the decisions they didn't give themselves the chance to be able to make.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, to me, it's not as much about Jordan Morris and Albert Rusnak as much as it is about Pedro de la Vega and, to a lesser extent, Jesus Ferreira. I'm really not, like, Noah, you made this point a couple shows back. Like, is there really that much of a meaningful difference on one of these players on max TAM compared to a DP? They're still, like, taking up a big part of your salary cap either way. But those two guys justified it last year, and I feel good about them at least for next year. But
they're not just there for next year.
You need more. Well, yeah, and then, I think after we see how next year goes, then you assess what to do from there. But what you need next year is for De La Vega to take a big step forward, and you need Jesus Ferreira to elevate this attack in the way that we hope and think he can. If those two things happen, then I think you're at a spot where you can compete and contend. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I think they can compete and contend this season, but you just signed a player in Jesus Ferreira who, by all accounts and by every reporting metric, wants to not be here in the long term and wants to go and play in Europe and go do stuff, and he's taking a pay cut to be able to do that. I'm sorry, but that's not forward thinking. I love it for this season. I love it maybe even for next season. But, like, I understand, and it is a good move. I'm not criticizing that move, but I'm just saying it reinforces the fact that we are playing in the here and now, and sometimes I feel like they are not turning their head and looking forward enough that they should be.
You could say that Ferreira is a forward-looking move in the sense that if he plays well and you get a bag for him, then you can theoretically invest that into the future.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, but I think that, like,
I'm just devil's advocate.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess also, like, I'm thinking forward, and I'm like, okay, Obed's going to be gone. How do you address replacing that, right? You re-sign JP, that's like is that a forward-thinking move, or is that just like an emergency thinking move? There's just, you knew that things were going to come up, I feel like, and I don't think that they were addressed in enough advance to where you can get that player integrated. You can build your squad to kind of slowly allow them to get minutes and then build into the team. It's just one of those things where I'm like, we are playing match by match. And maybe, you know what? Maybe I'm being too like critical in that this is a very MLS thing, right? Like you only have a limited number of roster spots. You only have a limited number of dollars to spend. So maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way that I'm seeing it lately.
Well, and so as it pertains to Jordan Morris, we were talking on the live show about whether he was an accounting DP or a regular DP. As of now, that's still unclear to me, but I think reading between the lines, a deal that's triggered by incentives would not be an accounting DP, as I understand it.
Yeah.
I don't really know these rules, but
they're not real rules.
So it's all fake. It's fake
It's
money.
fake.
But so it looks like the situation is that they're going into this season with Rusnak, Jordan, and De La Vega as the DPs, with Ferreira, Christian Roldan as TAM players. And then in the summer window, I guess we'll see what happens. But I do think that going into the season like that and seeing how it plays, you will have a better idea of what type of moves that you need to make once you see how Ferreira integrates, once you see how De La Vega looks. That will inform how you address the roster going forward. I will say that like we are going into this season, pretty much all of us, under a blanket assumption that De La Vega is a total zero and not going to contribute at all. The team is not looking at it like that, and I don't think that's as guaranteed an out. I know everyone is soured on it because of how last year went. I would be pretty surprised if this year is an exact repeat. Like I'm hoping with health and fitness, he'll actually be able to contribute this year. If he becomes a regular, consistent contributor, I think that changes the calculation and how we look at this. Like I said, right now, everyone is just assuming that he's going to be a total worthless non-contributor, non-factor. I get that, but I'm open and I'm open to the notion that could actually not be the final outcome. If that is the final outcome and it's the exact same thing as last year, then there's going to be bigger questions than the ones that we're talking about. At that point, they are going to have to move off the player and replace him. I don't really see any other way around that. So, I think to me this whole issue is more about De La Vega than anything. We can debate if Jordan should be a DP. We can debate if Rusnak should be max TAM or DP. If De La Vega actually hits, then those questions they matter a lot less, and I think you will see that in the results on the field. Like if he starts playing well and contributing, I think they're going to get a lot more consistent results. When you put Ferreira in there, hopefully that will elevate it a little more. So you just have to see how that plays, I think, and then assess from there.
I mean, I still think that for me, even if he had hit, it's just like I understand that those two players produced at a DP level, but you can't tell me that like if their deals are multi-year, Albert Rusnak is how old? 30?
He's 30.
30? I mean, signing him back to a multi-year DP deal, which is what I think it was reported, like 2+ years, 2 years and an option or something like that. I mean, I don't understand it. I don't truly understand if you're like, we have a DP who's not hitting and has no we might believe that he will. We have every indication that he will, but he hasn't shown it yet. And then you're like, let's re-sign these two guys who did produce at DP levels this year, but one of them may or may not have hit because of incentives. So you're like, okay, we're locked into that. We have one open DP spot. What are we going to do with it? Well, we're already in a corner and we need a 10. Who else is going to play that position? I guess we have to sign Albert Rusnak back to a DP contract. It is not to me about De La Vega. It's about the fact that they always knew he may not hit in the first season. They always knew he might not hit in the second season. They even said that. They said, we don't think he's going to be a completely come in here and change the team player. He got injured. Things happened. I feel like it is not on De La Vega at all. I feel like it's more on the signings the re-signings
It's
that
not.
you made.
It's not on him. It's on the strategy of committing that much to a young DP instead of a more established player.
Maybe it's all three of that.
That's what I question the wisdom of in hindsight. It's really it's not. I think that it's not about the Morris Rusnak duo. Like what I question is whether the resources they allocated to a young DP should have been allocated in that manner. And we are going to find out. Like last year was admittedly a total bust for De La Vega. It did not inspire much confidence, but I think it was also just like an absolute worst case scenario. Like if you could have drawn up the literal worst case scenario for how his first year in MLS would go, that is exactly how you would draw it up.
Correct.
Like the percentage odds of the worst possible outcome occurring in the in 2 years in a row. Maybe it'll happen. I don't know. I mean, if that happens, like I said, that it's going to be an anchor on the roster.
Yeah.
If that happens, so there's a lot of pressure on the organization for that not to be the case again this year, and by extension, I think kind of like you said, pressure on the player that really shouldn't be there. But that's the situation they're in, just with what took place last year. So
to wrap it up just a little bit and finish my thoughts here, like all of those moves in a vacuum are that short thinking of like, we need to sign a player right now with our big spot, and he's young and he's going to come in and he's going to be the only person that we sign to make an immediate impact. You have to think that there's a potential that he doesn't do anything, especially with the sample size across the league, right? Like, you're right to say that them making the assumption that De La Vega hitting was going to completely change this roster and make them a powerhouse was silly. It was silly. And you can say that in hindsight, but you can also say that when you were doing that. Like, yes, he's amazing and talented and all of these things, but we've seen it time and time again. You get a young player, he comes into this league, it's completely different than anything he's ever experienced before, and it's hard, and they don't hit in the first season, or maybe halfway through the second season they finally find their footing. But I think it's like that. Those are the type of moves that I'm saying they keep getting themselves into a corner by making these decisions instead of being able to make decisions with the thought of 2 seasons in advance, 3 seasons in advance. It's not there. It's not there for me.
Yeah, I mean, I do think just to wrap up, moving from the Nico Raul era into a new era is inherently like a transitional situation. And I think, like I said, like, I know everyone is saying in hindsight they should have moved off those 2 players earlier, and I think we can most definitely say that now. But the reality is, even if you had done that, there would have been a period of transition too. You would have just had like a better jump on it than they ended up having. But I mean, as it stands, we're going to see what happens. I am looking forward to getting Ferreira here and integrated, and just seeing how that plays, like during preseason, during those games, and then just hopefully having De La Vega get like a full healthy offseason under his belt, like get his mind right, get his body right, and see what they can do.
I say something that's going to sound completely opposite to everything I just said, but it can complement this?
Yeah.
I think this team is going to be good and fun to watch. Like, I think all of those things that we said, I'm frustrated with the way that they've gone about it, and I think that it does shoestring you and potentially not even let you sign someone in the summer. But the team's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to see Jesus Ferreira and Jordan Morris and Albert Rusnak and Pedro de la Vega play. I think that's going to be a fun team to watch.
Yeah.
And they might even be really good.
Yeah, I think we're looking at it through a lens of, how set up are they to compete for and win trophies?
Yeah.
And I think there's still this question and debate on like what's their level compared to the LA teams and the Columbuses and the Inter Miamis of the world. And that's the question that I think we're really going to get answered next season. But to me, I mean, I've been arguing for a while that the perception, you can watch the ambition ratings, but I've been arguing for a while that the perception of the gap between where Seattle is in terms of contention compared to those teams is overstated a little bit. Like, it's not as great as a gulf as people are saying, which is what I found through my scientific formula of the ambition ratings. But that's the beauty of it. The game is played on grass or turf. And we're going to find out.
We'll find out.
All right. What did the next topic I have here is the future of Obed Vargas. Craig Wives has said that he is going to stay at least through the summer window. And then I think, I mean, they didn't outright say this, but I think the idea is have the Club World Cup be a platform to hopefully increase his value even more, then sell him for a huge bag at that point. So I think the question is, where do we think he will go? Liga MX or Europe? Where do we think he should go? Do you want to take that?
I mean, it was rumored that Club America was interested in Obed. Personally, if I'm him, I'm like staying away from Mexico because you're never getting out of there. You're going to play in Liga MX for the rest of your life. They don't sell people to Europe very often. So if you want to go play in Europe, go play for, I don't know, anywhere you want to go, you can transfer there and Sounders get a bag and whatever. But I honestly do think that if he goes to Liga MX, there will be some sort of premium that the Sounders charge compared to what they would set. If he wants to go to Europe, I think they would kind of just let him go on less than what they really want for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to like his personal preference of what he wants to do, which I've kind of heard conflicting sentiments on that. I've heard him say himself that playing in Liga MX, ideally for the club that his dad played youth soccer for, that would be something of a dream for him. I think a club like Club America, I mean, they splash cash and they're the most popular team in this country.
Yeah.
The United States.
Yeah.
Like that's how big a profile that they have here. Like they have a bigger fan base here than I think any MLS team, as far as I can tell. Every time I've been to like one of their Leagues Cups or Champions League games, like I'm always just like surprised at just how big, like a lot of teams have big visiting fan bases, but like when Club America was there for, I think, did they play Seattle in CCL? I was at a Club America game at Lumen for some reason, some tournament, and it was packed with their fans. So if they want to give a bag for him, I think that would kind of be a dream move for him. But like, I think, I mean, it just depends what offers they get and also where he wants to go. I personally would like to see him try his hand in Europe, like the Bundesliga or something. But like he specifically has sort of his heart tied to Mexico, and he plays for their national team now.
Yeah.
And he has that like sentimental connection to it. So that could play into like what he wants to do. But either way, they got to get a big bag for him this summer.
Borussia Mönchengladbach. You're on the call,
because
buddy.
ultimately the whole discussion we were having about like the sort of lack of roster flexibility that they have, a biggest way to get out of that is to sell a couple players, which they have not really been doing. And Obed's at the front of the players that could potentially help with that.
Yeah, I mean, you have Obed, Josh Atencio, Reed Baker-Whiting. You have all of these players, Danny Leyva. I mean, you could interleague sell him potentially or transfer. I don't know. Who knows where he's going to go. But I think that Europe would suit him so much better than Liga MX. And I think he could genuinely be a superstar on the Mexican national team. And I think that like part of that would be if he goes to Europe and, goes and performs and plays really well, he can, I don't know. He's talented enough to go literally play wherever he wants. I'm serious. I think he could go to the EPL and demolish. We're Obed stands.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously a pro Obed show.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw what he did last year. It is, I will say I think I mentioned this before, but the national perception of him doesn't quite match with the local perception of him. I think nationally he's thought of as a extremely talented kind of up and coming young player. I don't know that all the pundits and the scouts are sold on him being like a $10 million player. We watch him play every week, so we know that he's at that level. But I'll be interested to see what the market actually ends up being when we see the offers start getting reported. It's got to be a huge bag, though. That is for sure.
Yeah. I mean, he's 19. He's 19, and he's already won CONCACAF Champions League.
When he was 16.
When he was 16, he's played in, I don't even know how many minutes he's played now. Like, he is a full-blown game in, game out starter and has been that way since he was, like, 18. I mean, that's like, if you look at MLS and you look at the players who do that, the ones that go to Europe, they usually play pretty well. I don't know, like Josh Sargent, right? Did he play in MLS? Am I just making that up?
No, he did
Guys,
not.
Josh Sargent played for San Diego Waves, and he was really good.
I know what you're saying, though.
You know what I mean?
Saying,
Like that typical, like, just plays when they're young, balls out. Fuck it, Alphonso. He's better than Alphonso Davies. That's what I'm going to say.
All right, I like that.
That's my take.
I like that take. Where did Josh Sargent play his youth soccer? That's what I'm wondering.
Probably like Philly Union Academy.
Well, St. Louis is where he's from. He played his youth soccer in St. Louis and then IMG Academy. I thought
that's in Florida.
I thought that was like a football feeder.
No, they
school.
have all sports. It's like a sports private school.
Okay, I didn't know.
They rack lots of money.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. We only have a couple more topics here. This might be a bit of a short little episode, but should we hit these Rashford rumors and then Brandon Vasquez?
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay.
This will be good for the YouTube content.
Okay.
Right here.
So yeah, I honestly was not going to dignify the Marcus Rashford rumors at all, but these stemmed from a report by an actual reporter, Ben Jacobs, who's a guy who's in the know, and he's the one who I saw bring this up.
Yep.
So if Ben Jacobs brings it up, that isn't like an aggregator account that has no credibility. That is a real reporter. I'm not saying that means that Rashford to Seattle has any legs. I am just saying it's like a real rumor and not like a just some guy on Twitter firing, you know?
Yeah.
So Ben Jacobs, this is just what he said. I'm just reporting what he said. Said there is, quote, a real appetite to bring Rashford to MLS, believing his arrival could have a similar impact to that of Lionel Messi at Inter Miami.
LOL.
And that conversations about a possible move have been held internally at Seattle Sounders. So I was watching the clip where Ben Jacobs was talking about this, and he was basically saying that there's an appetite, like, kind of within the league to make a Rashford move potentially happen, and the reason that Seattle stood out as a potential destination and that they've been talking about it internally just as, you know, floating the idea is because of the Club World Cup. And I guess part of what he was saying comes into play is the amount of money that he said Seattle stands to generate just for participating in the Club World Cup, which
not correct, by the way. I want to say
the bag he was talking about is
40 to 60 million. Not
that is
happen.
Nothing to what I've heard they're going to get for being in it. They're going to get some money for that, though.
Yeah.
But anyway,
like at least a couple
his
dollars.
point was whatever the amount of money they get from that could theoretically negate whatever
I don't
budgetary concerns would play into that. That is according to Ben Jacobs. So I don't know. What should we talk about with this? I mean, it's not going to happen.
I mean, I think we should couch it all with, this is not going to happen ever, period, for multiple reasons. One, it doesn't, in the summer, there's not going to be a spot for him. There's not going to be a spot for him. He's not going to be able to come here. It doesn't matter.
But you do know that
MLS is going to give us a Marcus Rashford rule?
They did it for Dempsey. They did it for Messi. They find ways to do these things.
I'm just saying, a Marcus Rashford?
Is he a
Messi-esque or Dempsey-esque player?
I mean, he's for sure like on the Dempsey tier. This guy has 60 caps for the England national team and was at one time considered like one of their best up and coming young players. Like Dempsey was great, but like I think Rashford is a different, especially because he's also 27.
I mean, he would definitely be. I'm not saying he would be a bad signing. I just think it's like you're gonna change league rules again.
They would. That's what I'm saying, though. They would.
I don't know, man. Well, you're the MLS insider right here,
when there's an opportunity to bring a player of that type of profile to the league, whether it's Seattle or anywhere else, they tend to find ways to make it happen. I don't know if it would be Apple TV funneling him some money or what it would be, but like I think it's more about like would the player want to come here and could they make it happen more than like the budgetary concerns? I think they would work around that.
Yeah, I just don't see it ever happening. I mean, he had 20 goal contributions last season in the Premier League. He's 27.
That's sort of how I feel about it. Like he's not.
There's not a bag in the world. He just turned down multiple offers from Saudi that were going to be. I mean, that's going to pay you more than MLS ever will be able to pay you. And I'm sorry, like I love our Garden Shed League, Ari. I would do anything for our Garden Shed League, but we're just that. We are not the Premier League. I would never compare us to that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think the idea would be it would be like a changing perception, push the league forward type of. That would be their thinking behind it.
I mean, sure, but
I'm not saying that that's what would happen. I'm just saying that's the thinking behind it.
I think in a vacuum, the idea that the Sounders would get some sort of league assistance to help them be incredibly competitive in the Club World Cup is actually a valid hunch. I think that that's the more interesting conversation around this is less about Rashford, but more about maybe the Sounders are going to utilize the Club World Cup to be able to get some sort of change and some sort of massive player on their roster without having to spend, which then you have the Sounders are broke agenda group will be rolling on that.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it would be cool. Rashford to MLS would be obviously a huge story. Rashford to Seattle would be sick, I think. I mean, he's definitely a great player. I do think as far as being more competitive in the World Cup, to me, it's more this is when people are talking about we need to make we got the Club World Cup coming up. How could we not make signings to there's no signing that you could make that's going to put your roster in a place where you're making a run at the Club World Cup. I just don't, it's not gonna, I would not go into the Club World Cup as a fan, expecting that, even they could sign Marcus Rashford.
Right.
And I don't think it would make, I'm really not sure it would make that big a difference for their chances at the Club World Cup. There's just, even with that, there's just too big a gulf in roster spend between them and the teams that they're playing.
I mean, yeah, it's not even, one signing is not going to make you competitive in the Club World Cup. I mean, I think that it could maybe move the needle a little bit, especially if it's a player of that caliber. But there's just let's get back down to earth. We're gonna have fun watching the Club World Cup. We get to participate. We get some money. It's gonna be the second one we're ever in, and we're still the only team that has ever legitimately qualified twice out of MLS. So I mean, there's a lot to be. I mean, I think overall on this idea though is. It is cool that we're still linked with these kind of signings. Seattle is a massive club. It's funny. It's people want to say, oh, the Seattle's value in the name recognition market and all of that. Come on. We're getting linked with Marcus Rashford. We're massive.
I'm down to perpetuate that narrative, even though I question how hot this link really is. All right.
Ben Jacobs, come on the show.
Ben Jacobs, come on the pod. All right. I mean, I just had this one last topic for us, and then we can, I guess, get out of here. Does that sound good?
Let's do it, yeah.
All right. I mean, there's been just one big league-wide move. I mean, there's been a few, but I think one big main one that we wanted to talk about. Mm-hmm. Brandon Vasquez reportedly returning to MLS to Austin FC for a transfer fee of, was it $10 million per Tom Bogues? $10 million?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up the tweet here.
From CF Monterrey. Brandon Vasquez, one-time Atlanta United backup striker, turned FC Cincinnati star, turned CF Monterrey, transferred. Actually was playing well in Liga MX. He was producing. He had, I think, 14 or 15 goals or something for them last year. Now he returns to MLS. Austin FC is the club that wins the sweepstakes. I think that
wasn't San Jose in the race for him
I
too?
think I heard San Jose was in the race at one point as well.
I think.
So Austin FC wins it. I think that is a a good move for them, obviously.
That's a sick move.
Yeah, well, they were rocking Giassi Zardes and Diego Rubio last year,
Yeah.
so they really needed like a proven striker. And Brandon Vasquez is certainly that. He's definitely proven in MLS, so that's a good move for them. I feel like for us, we always talk about it through the lens of should Seattle have acquired this player. We did it with Leo Campana. Brandon Vasquez.
Yes.
I know you stand Brandon Vasquez. I mean, there's not really a logical fit for him right now, but I mean, yeah, like we talked about the reasons for that, but like, I don't know, like, would you have shelled out 10 million for Brandon Vasquez?
It's not real money. It's not real money. None of the money's real. I mean, why not? 10 million, Brandon Vasquez, U.S. men's national team player, was balling out in Mexico. Literally has played in MLS before. You know he can produce. You know what you. That's not like an insane bet on $10 million. You know he's talented. He's played here before. He understands the league. He's a U.S. national team player. I don't really understand. That fee seems reasonable. I don't know. Like, we're getting into the territory now in MLS. Well, $10 million fees are not like insane. I think that it's a great signing, and the even better tag on it is Sebastian Drusi is nearing a departure for River Plate, per Tom Bogert, and they will, if he leaves, they're going to sign another DP. So they're not only spending $10 million, they're going to spend another God knows how many million on another DP. And I'm just saying, if I'm a Sounders fan, the discourse is discoursing on that. I mean, 10 million and then drop in another bag, but we got re-signed Rusnak.
Austin FC can spend $100 million on transfers. They finished in 10th place last year with 42 points.
They were so bad.
11, 14, and 9, and a -9 goal differential, and fired their coach. All right, so like Brandon Vasquez is a good pickup for them, but I'm gonna wait to see. I'm gonna make them prove it on the field before I get envious of their roster building. Mm-hmm. They got a lot of work to do.
Also, I think FC Cincinnati has a 10% sell-on fee for Brandon Vasquez, which I think is hilarious. That Austin is essentially feeding more money back to them. That's kind of sick.
As far as next year, how many more goals across all comps are you going to predict Brandon Vasquez scores than Jordan Morris?
I don't know. I don't know what their whole team's going to look like.
Because again, this is sort of how I feel about like the Campana debate too. I think we're going to look down at the end of the year, and the production between Leo Campana, Jordan Morris, and Brandon Vasquez is going to be roughly similar. And all these debates are going to be pretty much a wash.
I think it's going to come down to...
I think we talk about these things... And then when it actually comes down to it, the production is closer to a wash than people predicted.
We'll see if Jordan can stay healthy. That's all I'll say. He played every minute of basically every game last season. If he can stay healthy, yeah, I think that's a conversation. Yeah. But I think that's where the differentiator between Jordan Morris and Brandon Vasquez and Leo Campana is, and it depends on the team.
They are younger.
Like Brandon Vasquez, if they sign another DP and they're doing a paint pencil type of vibe, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like you always say it, 1-2 signings can completely flip a roster in MLS, and that seems like what Austin FC is trying to do.
And their sporting director certainly had,
and they cleaned house in front of them.
They've been cleaning house, and they're rebuilding.
Yeah.
So we'll see. The thing is, like they had to splash all that cash because they gutted their roster because they were terrible last year.
Correct.
So that's why that's happening.
Don't you like fun, Ari? Don't you hate fun? You just hate fun. You're like, you know what?
Hey,
Jordan Morris is fine. No, I want Brandon Vasquez for $40 million, Ari. I think that's really, at the end of the day, a lot of this debate comes down to is like, I want the tweet. I want the Tom Bogert tweet from my club.
If Seattle had signed or had gotten Brandon Vasquez, people would have said it's unambitious because he previously played in
American,
MLS, and is a USMNT player.
Yeah. Which we're,
Canadian.
We're Canadian, so we won't care.
All right. I think that's about all I had, unless you had anything else you wanted to hit.
No, I think we hit it.
Okay. We're going to call it right there for episode 80. Thank you, as always, everyone.
First show of 2025.
First official show of 2025. We streamed a few days ago, but yeah, first official show of 2025. 80 episodes, a big milestone. 1K subs on YouTube, big milestone. Appreciate all our subs. Like, comment, rate, subscribe, write
Sub
reviews.
to the YouTube, because we do live streams on there now. If you guys, we're not posting them on this feed. I'm not doing that, but go on the YouTube, sub, hit the bell button. We're going to start streaming on the same day every week. We'll let you know more when we have it.
We're figuring out
down.
the schedule, but we're going to lock that down. All right. We're going to call it right there. We'll see you guys next time. Until then, we out.
Peace.